Use your mind, you better think, you better think. Think it through, you better think, you better think, you better think. Are you a zombie? You better think. Use your mind, don't be a follower. You better think. Yeah, I like that.
You're listening to You Better Think, hosted by Cass Allen and Poetess Chanelle, and sponsored by Bullhorn Gypsy. Thank you for joining us for this month's episode of You Better Think, hosted by Cass Allen and Poetess Chanelle. The subject today is God. Much like many subjects, this is a touchy one. A lot of people believe in God and a lot of people don't. Then you have people who don't know what to believe. My personal thought is that there's a power out there higher than all of us that generated us. And I talk to that power just about every day of my life. If not, I wake up just about every day, and the first thing I try to do is thank that power for waking me up. And I ask for the strength to do goodwill and the wisdom to know the difference between my hand and the hand of God and which one to apply. That's my daily prayer. I choose that prayer to start my day because I know we all have something called self inside of us that is attached to a lot of emotions and experiences, and we're all basically, in my opinion, cubs bumbling our whole lives and need direction just like a kid, even as we grow. And it's important that we stay grounded, in my opinion, to aspire beyond where we are. And in reaching beyond where we are, I naturally take into account there must be somewhere higher than here. And it seems like as we aspire and grow in our lives, there's always another plateau, which leads to that infinity topic, but I digress. The point here is I believe there's elevation beyond our elevation. There are thought processes that are untapped, certainly by myself. There are places that are unseen by myself that exist that my eyes probably can't even see. Clearly, we can't see beyond a certain point without getting in vehicles and aircrafts, etc., to move around to see those things with the eye. So imagine what's beyond the eye in the skies. Sometimes I look up in the sky at the stars and say, maybe those are eyes of higher beings. Maybe they're some type of energies like ourselves that just look different. I start to think beyond what we're taught. Because if you think about it, many times what we are taught changes through time, contradicts itself through time. Gets edited through time, from knowledge, from exposure. I personally have had things happen in my life that I cannot explain, that I just simply write off as that higher power, as I'm sure many of you do. I've heard many stories throughout my life from many of you about things that you've witnessed or have happened to you, or you don't know how you've gotten out of, overcome, why you're still alive. And we all ascribe it to something is watching us. We call it our angels. We call it God, God and his angels. Each religion has its different way of describing that God. And of course, we're not going into that on this show. But at the end of the day, regardless of the language, the demographics, the religion, the practice, the spirituality involved, many people seek a higher power to guide them, to cloak them in love, to give them direction. We talk about our friends, our families, our doctors, our therapists, and how they aid us in maintaining our conditions so we can remain on our cogwheels. But there's a being that many people talk about, whether, like I said, you believe or not or question. There's a lot of hot topic about how we really got here. Because in my opinion, nobody knows. We know about the scientific generation of us through each other. But how did that begin? Hot topics. You're listening to You Better Think, hosted by Cass Allen and Poetess Chanelle. Sponsored by Bullhorn Gypsy.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think.
Yeah, I was just talking about how we got here. I've heard so many stories. The birds and the bees, obviously. And as I mentioned earlier, I always have curiosity about how we got here. Not through our parents, but as human species. Oddly enough, I heard two different stories in the last week. Both we're probably familiar with. And it wasn't through conversation seeking anything with anyone. It just came up because, theology, I think, is a hot topic with people, spirituality, revelations, the war is a spiritual war, World War III, etc. There have been a lot of movements towards doing better in a lot of circles I've mixed in. Nevertheless, let's get back to how we got here. I spoke with a friend of mine who practices a religion who said we got here through God creating Adam and Eve coming through Adam. Then, oddly enough, I received a phone call from someone this week who had some very interesting conversation through one of his mentors who is a good friend of Stephen Hawkins. And they had a very profound conversation about how we became as such through the lights, the seven colors, etc., which I won't go into because I don't want to reveal his thoughts, but enough that we all have heard through other religions. And I'm not going to name religions because some of them do cross, and there's no need for me to try to be a master there because I'm not. But nevertheless, there are so many people who have accounts of how we got here. And they all speak with such conviction. And some are similar yet vary, and some contrast. My question is, how do we know who's right? There are a lot of people who say God spoke to them. And when they speak what they have been told, they tell contradictions to each other. Who's right? Throughout time, languages have changed, words have changed, things get retranslated, words get translated wrong. How do we know which words were translated right and wrong? We also learn that things have been erased from our eyes and things have been stuffed in books that were not originally there. So how do we know who's right? How do we know who's right? Did we come from God creating Adam and then making Eve? Was there 93 billion years ago, or million, I forget which one, I think it was billion, a light that created the seven colors that created all of us? How do we know who's right? I try not to get too hung up on who's right, even though it's fascinating. I guess if I were a historian, that's a hell of a trip into the past. Yes, I said hell of a trip into the past, good and evil, right? I try to focus more on the present. I used to get hung up on the future not too long ago, getting very worldly with planning. I've reduced myself down to trying to exist in the present, and I'm having such a beautiful time there. I feel like I'm in my most zen state, my most oneness with the universe when I'm in the present, because I'm appreciating what's around me now, what's living and breathing around me now, getting in touch with the universe. And when that happens in my life, I have joy. However I got here, I have joy. Why ever we're here, I have joy. And I'm going to ask every day to do God's will and fulfill my assignment here. We're here for a reason, not just to hurt each other. And I'll take the word just out, not to hurt each other. God is love. We're not here to hurt each other. God is love. Even if you don't believe in God, look at a baby smile. Love.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think. Think it through, you better think. You better think. You better think. Are you a zombie? You better think. Use your mind, don't be a follower. You better think. Yeah, I like that. I love that beat, it's ill.
So I'm sitting here thinking about how God is love, in my opinion. And like I said, if you don't believe in God, look at a baby for love. And that took me to God is Love by Marvin Gaye. What a beautiful song. For any of you that remember, don't go and talk about my father. God is my friend. He made this world for us to live in and gave us everything. All he asks of us is that we give each other love. And I understand there are people out there who have different pronouns. Some believe God is a he. Some believe God is a she. Some believe God is a combination of the two, since the two genders are here. I'm not going into that either, because that's eternal. What I'm talking about here is love. At the end of the day, I think I've said this before on a show, we all want love. I know it might sound crazy what I'm about to say, but I always tell people, even Hitler had a wife. Regardless of the horrific acts that people may even create, oftentimes there's one person that they won't hurt. The psycho mama that might be convincing them to go out and eat people, or whatever the case. I'm being extreme here, but I think y'all get my point. And that is an extreme case, but very probable. At some point in my life, I stopped believing in love. And while preparing my mind for the show, I had a slap to my own head. And I said, guys, how can you say, you're not going to love again, and God is love? That doesn't even make any sense. And for the first time, that hit me. We all go through episodes in our life. Oh, I'm so in love. Oh, I can't live without this person. I'll eat my own nails off before I harm her or him. Or we go through the I will never, ever love again for as long as I live. And you be like 19 years old and you've already decided for the next 75 years you're never going to have any emotions, because we all be going through at that moment. And me, like others, have had those moments, especially at my age, which there's no need to tell, but I'm up there. I'm not 18, let's put it that way. So in that moment, talking to you all, you hear that great music? I love it. Cass is chilling somewhere in an undisclosed location, outdoors, as I like to be when I can be for the show. But let's get back on track. In that moment, when I had that realization, I felt something sweep through my whole body, and it felt good. It was recognition of, how could you not tie these two together so simply? So many of us go around saying, I'll never love, I'll never trust. God is love. So what are we doing for those who believe in those higher powers? And when I say God, replace it with whatever word you need. I'm talking about that source that you go to. I'm not going to sit here and go through 16, 27, 320 different names that everybody gives their source. We're talking about the source here. If you believe in that source, and normally that source that we all believe in is where we go for comfort, where we go for love, support, answers, much like a parent. All of those things, so unconditional, and we go without hesitation for something, right? So how can we do that and then say we'll never? Because imagine if your source felt that way. Where would you go? We better think.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think.
As I like to remind you all, the poetess Chanelle chooses the theme of the show, and for this segment she chose God. We've had the pleasure of hearing her spoken word since the inception of the show, and tonight we get that equal pleasure. So without me dribbling on and on about how much I and many others enjoy her work, let's just hear it.
This poem is titled God by Poetess Chanelle. Who is God? The magnificent force who's behind the woman I'm ordained to be. Through hard times, he's right there next to me. Who can come against his plan for me? He dropped me right into my destiny. Revealing his promises through extenuating circumstances and problems, no human could possibly resolve them. Backed into a corner with no choice but to turn to him, our relationship was the best thing that happened to me. When I ignored him, he was still there. I know, because I was supposed to be dead. Fighting for my life since birth, he gives me the strength to sustain myself on earth. He gets the recognition. I will not take the credit. If it wasn't for his presence, I may have decided to take an exit off this earth because I felt like I had nothing to live for. He reassured me that's not what he wanted for me at all. I have plans for you. Don't you dare give up, he said. Made me realize I had to think of others beside myself instead. So I dedicate this poem to the Most High, the one who will always be by my side.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think.
So as I mentioned a little earlier, I've been humbled out during this show. As many people I'm sure have gone through, you go through things that harden you, or, you get into a mood where next time this happens, I'm now a martial arts expert or a footballer in offense. I'm not taking no shit. I'm gonna knock motherfuckers down before they even get to be full-blown clowns, if you feel me. So through experiences, sometimes we become protective of ourselves. And at some point in my life, I know I've looked up and said, wow, you're so different. You used to be so GHI, and now you're freaking RST. And, I've managed to justify it for the most part, Yeah, that bitch deserved it. Huh? That motherfucker should have never this and that. Yeah, y'all already know me. Some shows I curse, some I don't. I feel what I feel. And I say it the way I feel it. So I hope no one's offended. This is what it is. It's Cass Allen. We say things like, you'll never get the opportunity again to be in such a position. And I don't need to go on and on. Y'all get my point. Sometimes we have so much disappointment, sadness, hate, so many things for people that we can't imagine ever having any type of kind words or thoughts or care to be in their energy space, rental in the head, etc. And unfortunately, if enough of these happen, sometimes people shut down. They give up hope. They figure every road will lead the same place, so why bother? I don't need any more friends because that bitch backstabbed me. That bitch slept with my man. That bitch stole my dress. That bitch left me alone at the club and I got my pocketbook stolen. We can tell so many stories, and don't think I'm making this stuff up and don't think it's my life. But the facts remain that so many things happen where we start losing trust and we find it difficult to love. Whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member that's abused us 1,000 times, unfortunately, through illicit acts sometimes just through taking advantage of our generosity. Then we have our relationships, our lovers, who hurt us and make us feel like we don't want to love again. So life, has layers of love in it that can, if you rotate through it enough, you may just say, I'm out for the count. Then I see, as time progresses, people, they make it part of their 10 commandments. Number 11 is, I will not love again. Thou shalt not love me again because I won't let you. I've been guilty of it, but guess what, people? We gotta stop that shit. Y'all already know what I'm gonna say. Why? Because God is love. And I do feel my happiest when I'm open to love. And I'm not talking about worldly love. I'm talking spiritual love and love for the universe. When my energies are there, I feel magic in my life. The whole world just opens like with a key to euphoria, utopia. And when I'm not in that space and I meditate on it, I realize that's where I want to be. And to me, that is God. Because in that space, it's love. It's nothing but pure love and free love and enjoyment of the universe. To me, that's what God is. Just enjoying the universe, being grateful for everything in it. But being careful, too, so your ass don't get eaten by the sharks, the alligators, and the lions. You better think. The more I think our assignment on earth is just that. We're here to love.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think.
We talk about God, and often most people equate God to love, as I've been doing. But I don't hear a lot of talk about all the other emotions inside of us. We talk a lot about how we're made in the likeness of God. If that be so true, then all of these emotions that we have inside of us, where are they authenticating from, folks? Hello? We read about things in scriptures that the source has done in fury to let them people know, I've had enough of y'all. Spank that ass, if you will. Beat the donkey. Many people speak of things that have happened where, whole peoples have been eradicated because of God's fury, either through great wars where few fight huge masses, or affliction and disease. There have been many tales of how God takes a big broom and sweeps the earth. I'm not being sarcastic, but I wasn't there. But when you read enough of something and the accounts take place through what seems like timeless zones, and you have to wonder if there's some truth to it, even if it's not all true, due to translations, myths, and misdemeanors, if you will. Some people, when they're angry, they pray to God to exact revenge. Some people stop believing in God when things go wrong in their lives. They get angry and they say there is no God. Or either they get angry and they blame God. I know people who have cursed God due to horrific things that they felt have happened in their lives that they don't feel that a good God would allow to happen. I'm sure many of you know people of such. So in our faith in God, when we have disappointments, sometimes we turn or we lose sight of where we were. I have seen people who consider themselves Bible scholars who pronounce faith to the world, who actually worry all of the time about things. So I always challenge them and say to them, if you have faith, why do you have worry? They contradict each other. And most of them stop and they think about it for a while. And they look at me and they giggle. Because it's facts. I tell them, if you have that kind of faith, pray once. Don't ask for the same thing twice. Your God heard you the first time. And I say your God because everyone doesn't identify under the same one. So let's get back to the word source. It works better. If you say to yourself, I'm going to get up in 5 minutes and go to the bathroom, most of the time you do it. You believe in yourself, right? We're made in the likeness, you say? So where's the faith? Yeah, where's the faith? Do you have faith in yourself? It can be very difficult to have faith when things are going wrong. There have been times where I've lost my faith. In my last challenges in my life, I was actually astonished with how much faith I did have, because everything just looked like it was on bleak on fleek. Everybody around me cackling, hollering, screaming, there's a fire. And I could see the fires blaring everywhere. And this time, instead of me trying to race in with a fire hose and put everything out, I rested and I said, God, I need you. I realized that I need to stop using my hand and use your hand. And that's where my prayer came from, knowing which hand to apply. I asked God for the discernment every morning so I can have better outcomes. And that's when I began to slowly love again.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think. Think it through, you better think. You better think. You better think. Are you a zombie? You better think. Use your mind, don't be a follower. You better think. Yeah, I like that. I love that beat, it's ill.
Okay, let's go to the other end of this and talk about people who use God as a weapon. And to make sure we're all on the same plane, by weapon, I mean people who will go to all kinds of scriptures based on what they are studying and supporting, and they will choose statements to toss at another person to show that that person has defied a commandment, rule, passage, whatever you want to call it, depending on what you practice. They let you know how disappointed God is in your behavior, in your statements, in you, how you really need to pull it together and realign yourself and all kinds of things, depending on what they feel is your offense to God. Now remember, We have many practices out here. So your offense may change depending on your audience. Who's right? Now, what's interesting about this is usually or often those offenses are not a part of, let's go with the Christian-based faith, because that's where a large part of the audience in the country I'm based in practices. Let's go with the Ten Commandments. Often people go and toss things at each other that aren't even in the Ten Commandments. They will skip those 10 and go after people for other offenses. If we charge each other for just the 10 Commandments alone, we will never stop talking about what each other has done every day. People break those commandments in so many ways in the guise of normality. I think we should have some fun right now and go down the list. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. I'm not really going to touch that one because, as we said, so many people, first of all, are misguided. Second of all, how you usually practice is how you're ingrained. You shall not make idols. We have a show named American Idol, and I'll stop there. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. You know we all do it all of the time. I am not going to put up any justification because I know you know. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. I am aware of a lot of people through my life. There's only one that's prevalent in my life right now who observes the Sabbath of all the religious people I know of all backgrounds. Honor your father and your mother. I know people who curse them out, ain't speaking to them, talk about them like dogs, hate them. So y'all do too. You shall not murder. Unfortunately, that's something that does happen because of war. It's normally kill or be killed. So I'm a little on the fence about that one, because if someone's running at me with a knife, I guess I'm supposed to take that hit to my head? I don't think so. So that commandment is one I'd probably break. I'm more than likely, let's not even play, I would to defend myself. Let's just get right to it. You shall not commit adultery. I don't even need to talk about all of the stuff that's going on all over the world with people having fun with each other's genitals. Don't steal. Let's not even talk about it. If they give you an accidental discount on something, you take it. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. We do it all the time, lying mad in court, saying all kinds of nonsense, either because we scared or we angry. You shall not covet. We do it every day, every time we stand in line for something that we don't need. Shall I continue? And we jump those 10 to go after people for all other kinds of stuff, like, girl, did you see her hair today? How she came into church with them tight pants on. You feel what I just said? A mess. In the name of God, I think not. I giggle.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think.
A subject that is touchy for many. We all say God is love, God loves us all. But we already know that we don't all love each other. We don't even all like each other. A lot of us treat each other like shit. A lot of us claim to love each other and secretly don't. A lot of us loving each other in the wrong way, meaning unhealthily. You have toxic love. You have pedophilia love. You have all kinds of love that's not healthy. We have loves that are hidden. We have love that painful. People that, in the name of love, take pain. And people sometimes practicing what they believe God is love. Sometimes people end up martyring themselves. I think from experiences, and namely consensual experiences across my peers throughout my life, I find that a lot of situations where people end up hurting, whether it be through family, lover, whatever, the type of love is, they're normally enduring something that they shouldn't. Yeah, of course there are the surprises, but a lot of times that I'm talking about that super pain that comes from, building up lava until the volcano comes. In being loving, we have to know when to also practice discernment. Love doesn't mean being a victim to anything. Love should feel good. Love is not pain. I understand there are situations where we take pain for love. I get the general stuff. Maybe we'll take a spanking for somebody else. Whatever. Let's not even go there. I get that. You know what I'm talking about. Love is not pain. Love is not doing 15 years in jail to protect somebody else. I don't care what anybody says. While they out there free, enjoying life, fucking everybody they see. That's not love. Love is not getting your ass beat every day because you love that person and they just need somebody to love them. Love is not watching your one parent beat the other parent every day after you get home from school. It's not love. Even though, later that night you see them kissing over each other, drunk, and I'm being extreme, but these are situations, that people need to learn and not love, so that we don't normalize it. We need to practice love and stand up to these things and face them. I know good and evil. I can talk to the cows come home, but that's my assignment, I feel, is to spread love. I've been doing it my whole life. Sometimes I've gotten it right. Sometimes I've gotten it wrong. But like I said, I believe we are all cubs. We are all out here fumbling on our assignments, And since I was born, a big part of me has always had this deep, profound love for the universe. Like I'm a part of it. Like I could roll in it and feel the atoms without freaking y'all out. It's like I just love life is what I'm trying to say and put it into words for y'all. And as a little girl, I've always just laid and looked up and been in amazement just by the beauty of everything on this earth. And that love fed me so well until I stopped loving like that. Then I began to feel my slow death for the first time. For the first time, I felt mortal. I felt of the world suddenly, like I have an expiration date. Then I lost it for a long time. A long, long time, ladies and gentlemen, and others, without going into categories, but showing respect. And I'm so glad I got it back. And if you haven't found yours yet, find it. If you haven't found it, and if you lost it, get it. God is the universe. Love God. God is love.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think. Think it through, you better think. You better think. You better think. Are you a zombie? You better think. Use your mind, don't be a follower. You better think. Yeah, I like that.
So we talk about God. You have people that believe in the same God that don't even speak the same language. You have people, obviously, that speak the same language that don't believe in the same God. There's so many, hills, valleys, roads that lead to people's sources. People have waged wars in the name of these sources. Your source is not the true source. My source will show you. Let us take you down. Religions have been birthed from other religions because of thin lines that divide, or I'm sure some of them have come from rivalry. People believing they have oracles, even. It's like a big maze, and it's so fascinating. I don't know if I've mentioned before, I've read several books on spiritualism, religion, whatever you want to put these books under the umbrella of, just to have a better appreciation for the variety in life. I believe even if you're raised one way, you should expose yourself to other things. You should, just like the news. That's why we watch the news, to know what's going on. I don't feel we do enough of that when it comes to, cultures. And I'm not saying every culture out there expose yourself. I'm simply saying learn how to be inclusive and stop being authoritarian with our opinions and beliefs. Because at the end of the day, and I'm going to say it like I feel it, nobody gives a damn. At the end of the day, unless it's somebody out there looking for guidance or is in awe by your ass, they don't care. They don't want to hear your 18 minutes of why you believe in the religion you do. But see, me on the other hand, I'm weird like that. I am fascinated. I'll ask you. I like to know why people believe the things they do. Sometimes just to see that Scooby-Doo look on their face when they don't even know why the hell they believe in what they believe, or you ask them a question that's out of reach that makes them question, well, hell. And I welcome the exchange because, like I said, that's what this show is about. It's not about shoving opinions down each other's throats. It's about getting each other to think and expand and, be inclusive and connect. We spend so much time not thinking and just auto-reacting and stereotyping, autopilot stupidity, reactiveness. I can say it 1,000 ways. It comes back to the same thing. Instead of really thinking about why we do the things we do and say the things that we say. I believe if God is love, if God made us all, then we are all loved and we are all connected, correct? If we want to be. But we stop loving, or we don't know how to love. Some of us can't love. We don't have the capacity due to neuroscience. I get all that. There's no such thing as 100. That's that perfection that people seek. That's impossible, but we can do better. We keep forgetting about the power of being in unison with things, how we move things. I watched a video earlier today, lion going after a hyena, and a maid and them little asses showed up. That lion went about his damn business as it was supposed to. It's the same with love. Love can work magic, and if you multiply it, the magic increases. I've seen it in my life. I'm sure many of you have too. We've seen great things happen through love for each other, getting each other to special places, graduations, making babies, falling in love, being there for somebody. There's so many things that love does. Giving to charities, helping students you don't even know get degrees, feeding hungry kids in a country you've never put your feet on. That's love. And don't you feel good after that stuff? Come on, tell the truth. You can tell me. You can whisper it. Come on, don't it feel good when you love? You don't have to know the people. And I'm not talking sappy love. It feels good. It feels right. You smile. Come on, admit it. Think about it. Admit it. Come on.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think.
As you know, every episode I try to bring you some of my creative works that mesh with our themes, if I have such. This week we have some music. As you know, I like to play, compose, produce, master, mix, you name it. A few years ago I worked on a project with a woman named Inez Reilly, Inezreilly. She's a minister, she's an author, she's a speaker, and many other things, as all of us with our intersections. She is the voice that you're going to hear on this track that I produced to close the show. We hope you enjoy.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because thou art with me. So even in those dark times in our lives, we have to be careful to say thank you to God because He is bringing us to the light. There is no place in our lives that God has called us to stay. Seasons come and seasons go. You know, in everything, it comes to pass. He's come to bring us through. He's never going to leave us stagnant because that's not like Him. He's always current. He's like water. He's always moving. His Spirit is like water, always moving. He is always speaking. He is always there, guiding us and giving us direction. And so what I want to say, and I know this is very brief in comparison, but I do want to say we have to be thankful in everything, even in our brokenness. We need to thank God because oftentimes things have to be torn down so that He can build them up the way that He originally created us for. And I know we get this place where there's a rose bush and it flourishes in the summertime and in the springtime and these roses just everywhere. But in the fall and the winter, you cut a rose bush back where you can hardly recognize what it is. And God is saying to those who are in their pruning season to be hopeful and expectant because spring and summer is coming, where your fragrance is going to wash out and everybody's going to know that the glory of God is resting upon you. So don't be ashamed of your winter season and don't get comfortable in your spring and your summer season, but be thankful for everything because that's just how God would have us to be. When we're going through things and we have a hard time even trusting what's going on within ourselves. And when I was going through the madness, God had this one song, and I will tell everybody, and anybody who knows me knows what I'm getting ready to say, is that the song by Fred Hammond that says, I'll find a way to love you more. And it says, through it all, I've lost so many things. It seems that I've lost is all I can say. But God is still so worthy of our praise and our love and our honor that it just overshadows what's going on. And when I took that song and I made it my daily meditation to God, that song got me through every morning because it took my focus off of what was going on and it put my focus on God. And oftentimes we fail to do that when we're going through stuff and when things are constantly happening and when we lose our license and when we don't have a car and when the bills keep coming and the money stops coming and all of these other things. We keep our focus on saying, God, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? When is this going to end? And God's saying, when are you going to stop looking at that and start looking at me? Because once that happens, then that other stuff becomes very small. God becomes very big. He takes His rightful place in our lives, and then we can see God's blessing coming our way. It overtakes us, like the Bible says, when we're sowing. The harvest overtakes the sower. But we have to put Him first. We have to magnify God and give Him thanks always, just like the woman of God said, and in everything. Because if we don't, then we're going to falter, fall, or even worse, for a servant of the Lord, sit down and do nothing. Giving thanks keeps us moving because it takes our focus off of what's going on and what we think is wrong in our lives. And it puts our focus on the only thing that is good, inherently good, and that's God.
Hopefully you enjoyed everything you heard today, and as always, we ask that you go in and engage and discuss and grow together. We're not trying to shove anything down your throats. We want you to use your throats to vocalize yourselves and get to thinking. Thank you, Poetess Chanelle, for sharing your gifts with us this week. Thank you, Inez Reilly, for sharing your gifts with us this week. You better think.
Use your mind, you better think. You better think. Think it through, you better think. You better think. You better think. Are you a zombie? You better think. Use your mind, don't be a follower. You better think.